Employees working in Haryana can now enjoy a glass of beer or any other low-content alcohol like ciders or wines in their offices. In the new excise policy 2324, the Haryana government has allowed employees working in large corporate offices based in Haryana to bring low-content alcohol to their offices. As per the policy, employees in a corporate office having at least 5,000 employees and a minimum covered area of 1 lakh square feet in single premise can obtain a license. On the show today, what are the new rules? What does it mean for employees in Haryana, in Gurugram to be particular, and their company's liquor rules, impact it will have on their company's liquor rules? Joining me at this point in time in the studio, my colleague Gulam, Jeelani. Rakesh Khar continues to be with us. Also joining us is Rahul Singh, who's the founder of Beer Cafe. I want to come to you first, Gulam. You've been tracking policy developments in Gurugram. What does the new policy entail?
Thank you, Shweta. So it's a policy which was released last week. It will be implemented from June 12, and it's a policy which will continue for 1 year. It may be extended. So there are many changes that has come in this Haryana liquor policy. One of the major changes that's being talked about is this allowing corporates to consume and have liquor on the premises, which is rare in any city, at least in North India. So Gurugram or Gurugram, whatever we may call it. So it is known for two things. One is the liquor there is served is cheap because of the low excise duty, and these liquor vents are usually open till 12 midnight, right? Okay. So government has made some changes in the policy, which includes these allowing corporates to serve the liquor. So there's a condition on it. It's not that every office can serve liquor. So it's, as you rightly mentioned, it's for the office which has at least 5,000 employees. It's for the office which is spread over 1 lakh square kilometers. It's for the office which has a particular area of canteen also. For that, they have to procure this license, which is called L10F license. So that is the new thing that has happened. So this, for procuring this license, obviously the offices will have to pay some fees, which is around, I think, which is around 10 lakh, and then 3 lakh is the security deposit that they have to give. So now, since the policy was released recently, there's not much clarity on this, but till now what we know is that corporates can have consume liquor within the premises, and this not every liquor, it's just low content alcohol.
So
right.
Basically not all kinds of liquor.
It's beers, it's breezers, beer,
ciders, wine.
Yeah,
okay.
Not the high alcohol content. But again, if you look at the policy, it has pros, it has cons. Obviously, the corporates will be happy because they won't need to organize events outside their offices. They can do it inside only, right? But there are also, Gurugram is a city known for these crimes related to alcohol consumption. As I said earlier, liquor vents are open till 12 midnight. Liquor is cheap in Gurugram, right? So recently, what had happened before this policy came, so the government had increased VAT and excise duty. So there is an argument within the Haryana government that we sell cheap liquor in Haryana than we do in Delhi. So there are efforts, especially from the Deputy Chief Minister Dushyant Chautala, who happens to be the excise minister also. He has made it clear that we will try to bring our prices at par with Delhi, because if Delhi is making money from the liquor, why won't we?
Absolutely. And it's a very good attempt. I want to bring Rakesh here. Rakesh, although there are a lot of, in a sense, stoppages here from allowing everybody to consume alcohol at all times. You've got to have 5,000 employees. You've got to have 1 lakh square feet of area in a single premise. And perhaps, only allowing a limited few corporate offices to serve alcohol on premise. But all in all, a very innovative way of collecting more excise.
Exciting. Shweta, there are two ways of looking at it. One is, as Gulam rightly identified, there's a political economy piece to it, and second is the corporate piece, which is essentially HR-led. So let me deal with the political economy piece first. I'm a little surprised that in the election year that we are headed for the general elections, and Haryana also goes to elections, they have brought in they brought in the liquor as possibly an election issue. You know what happened in Delhi? Repeatedly Delhi's ability to raise excise, raise excise revenue by bringing in 1+1 free scheme, which was abandoned later, which is at the heart of now this entire scam. Anything to do with liquor is not easy. So, and then it's a BJP ruled state. They opposed Delhi's, the so-called liquor freebie scheme. They said, Bevda state banane ki koshish hai. So in that sense, that charge would come flying at the BJP government in Haryana as well.
Right.
The other piece is that revenue. See, revenue in the fiscal federalism which we keep talking about In that sense, every state is looking and targeting greater revenues. So in that sense, they would be approaching, I don't know what the numbers look like, but they must have certain calculation that with a reduced rate of VAT, it's already become the hot spot for, as he rightly pointed out, hot spot for liquor sales till 12 midnight, and then even beyond that in Karobar, as it's called.
And in a hot hours also.
And in early hours till late night.
Right.
So how much does it translate into revenue? But that is possibly a key consideration. Political fallout, I think they'll stick some criticism. The corporate piece now, the corporate piece is, when I was looking at the fine print, as Gulam rightly identified, and you also referred to that, much of the excitement would go away, because 5,000 employees in one entity with 1 lakh square feet would take about 70% of the companies away. So people will have to, really hardly anyone to really immediately get into the fray. But yes, it's an employee delight. Whosoever is entitled to be there, and it's a Shweta, it's a HR nightmare.
That is correct.
Because at one level, HR would be too happy to announce the scheme. At another level, any possible misdemeanor in the office is also to the credit and debit of the HR office.
And since we don't have an HR representative, but you've been central to many ethic committees, and we discussed this in the morning, so I'm going to come to you on HR perspective in just a while. Rahul joining us at this point in time. Rahul, what does it mean for liquor business in Gurugram? We talked about how easy it is to access liquor, how easily available it is, how cheaper it is. This is an attempt, of course, being made, as we're reading it, by Haryana government to collect more in form of excise duty. But for somebody who operates cafes and sells liquor in Gurugram, what does it mean for you?
To start with, we are a Gurgaon based, our first outlet opened in Gurgaon, that's where our headquarters are. So we were really happy that this policy is coming force from Gurgaon, so that's our hometown. More importantly, we've always been pioneers in promoting low on alcohol beverages, which are far more healthier and safer than hard liquor. It's all about weaning people away from spirits towards healthier drinks like beer and wine and RTDs. From a government perspective, like rightly said, optimization of revenue, creating an ambience for legitimate and responsible drinking, most importantly, providing good quality liquor at a reasonable price is very important. So it's a balance the government has to do between optimizing the revenues as well as creating a safe and responsible drinking culture. You'll always have issues, that's part of the game. But at the end of the day, like we are in 23 cities as a chain. We're a homegrown brand. We're an Indian company, an Indian brand. We started off in Gurugram from our first outpost. I can tell you we serve about 1 million people every year. We do not have any issues. We have no issues.
On data points, I want to specifically ask you, what sort of sales are you looking at? And after this policy comes into effect, are you presuming that the sales number will go up, which they will, I am sure? And have you been able to calculate that? Have you been able to foresee what sort of revenue it's going to get you?
To begin with, Shweta, have you mapped Gurgaon from the latest perspective?
Yes.
So the perspective is, if you talk about the policy at whole, in any case, the revenue collections for the Haryana state for the year, which is coming to an end on 12th of June, has been the highest ever. The amount of jump they've seen, and saw particularly a lot to do with Gurgaon. Haryana means the main pivot point or the tentpole movement comes from Gurgaon. Next year, the government is looking at a 10,000 crore revenue. So obviously they're looking at a huge revenue. It's one of the largest revenue for a state in any case. And this is across the country. UP as a state has the highest amount of revenues coming in from liquor industry. So it is an important part for the social development for any state. Coming to the specific part of the L10F, the policy we are discussing today, which is, allowing low alcoholic consumption in corporate parks. This is going to be not a big revenue earner, because to first, the guardrails itself are pretty large. 100,000 feet office with a 2,000 feet canteen with a 5,000 employees, you're already talking about a handful of people qualifying. So it's going to be a very small amount, but it's to actually start off. I think by next year, once they see how it goes, they'll go and probably lower this barrier, because you have to start with something. You can't just say every office is allowed, because what will happen is if there are 10,000 offices in Gurugram, all of them will have a bar. It's not going to happen like that. It's going to start with something which is large. I can count about 8 to 9 companies already. This policy comes in place on 13th of June. Our team's already discussing with these companies where we will go and actually enable them with the infrastructure. We're a reliable brand. We're already a known brand, and everybody prefers something that they can rely upon. That's where we come in the picture. I don't think it's going to be a big revenue number, but it's the start from from something which didn't exist.
And I want to bring you in here at this point in time. I think Rahul's pointed something very interesting, which is if you were to allow everybody, now every corporate house would have a cafe running in their premises, but this is to ensure that there are in limited number of few people who qualify with these parameters, and these are very stringent parameters. Hardly 30%, as Rahul predicts, would qualify, handful few. As far as the implication on rules within a corporate is concerned, many corporates do not really allow liquor to be consumed at all. Not in premise, that's a far-fetched idea, but not to consume liquor and come to office. And they will therefore have to relook at some of their company rules.
Absolutely. I think the entire HR framework, or the code of ethics as it's called, will have to be redrafted. That's one way of looking at it. Simultaneously, if you send a normal HR, birthday greeting message, that also could possibly change and say that, let's have a drink at, say, at post-work hours. So these are the two spectrums. The other, on a serious note, what possibly could happen is that attrition, companies with smaller number of employees, you could see this as an incentive and move on to companies with larger number of employees. And HR, could also throw this as a carrot that, come on, we have the CTC, we have the DCTC, which is gross cost to company. With that is also, beer on the table.
You have the gym membership, and then you have the beer on the table.
As I said, the entire HR nomenclature when it comes to employee engagement would get a new spirit.
Absolutely. And as far as ethical issues is concerned, because many organizations and many a times being drunk is also misconstrued with being badly behaved, and that's where I think you have experience.
Yeah, I think
Rakesh.
As I said rightly, Shweta, we need to change the entire HR code of conduct while allowing this capability from the government to the business owner, which is the enterprise, and the supplier, which is the companies like the liquor companies. I think it's incumbent upon the organization that's hosting it to ensure that not even one case of misuse is happening. And it represents a paradigm shift. Imagine if someone was even seen to be smelling having liquor, would be asked to step aside, as they say, step aside, and then action would follow. I've dealt with such cases in my early organizations. So now if you are...
So there are cultural implications as
absolutely.
well.
No, it's a cultural paradigm shift in the company.
That is true.
And it has also got to do with India opening up, and it's like the IT sector where people go in shorts in Bangalore for a traditional North Indian company or even South Indian company, say textiles, they would be shocked. But I've seen people walking on the shop floor, very casually dressed. Also in, say, media and technology companies. So every sector has its own, orientation. And the more relaxed, more liberal you are, liberal doesn't mean that you impinge upon the new code of conduct. I think ultimately the responsibility of using this facility, if I can call it facility, our gentleman on the guest is saying that it's a change of social order, rightly so, is exactly on the employee. And of course, the organization also must bring in, there are CCTV cameras in organizations now. So anyone who is looking at availability of this facility has to be doubly responsible.
That is correct. And as far as what Haryana government is expecting out of this change, so there's not just a change in cultural paradigm, as Rakesh pointed out, there's also going to be a lot of changes on premises for these corporates who are hoping to serve alcohol. You have the fine prints of the policy with you. Apart from whatever stoppages that there are or the provisions of the policy, what is Haryana government planning to achieve through this?
So, and Shweta, if I may add to that question, Gulam is a senior political journalist, so he's also tracking. Do you buy the point that I raised when it comes to this may politically backfire?
So absolutely, sir, I agree with you, because Haryana, not only we have general elections next year, we also have Haryana elections later this year. So,
yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good issue for the government, for the party to be to be precise, to raise.
The opposition or the party?
For the party for now, and it will give opposition, because they also need money. Let's talk in the terms of, they also need money to contest elections.
Given that this has been a big fallout issue in Delhi, this has been a big fallout issue in Delhi, and we are still reeling under the tremors of it. I want to understand, what does it tell you about how politics works in the country?
Oh, you want to ask me?
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
See, it's a dichotomy, right? You have
that is correct.
You have had an issue in Delhi wherein the deputy chief minister is behind bars. He's already behind. Almost the party is, it's finished. Only the one leader is left. We don't know who comes next. And you have a neighboring state where the party which is not, I mean, which is an opposition party for them, is coming up with a policy which is encouraging consumption of liquor on the office premises. You know, there is a flip side. There's a political flip side to it. Congress will come one fine morning. They'll come and say, see what they are opposing in Delhi. They are promoting it. Gurugram, which is Haryana technically, and a poll-bound state. You know, it will have political ramifications, if I may say so. But again, there's also a flip side on the ground, which is like people who want to drink will drink anyway, on office or outside office. But inside office, maybe it will change their behavior, as Rakesh was saying. It's a, you know, cultural paradigm shift. You know, maybe it will change the culture of drinking we have. We know the karobar, how bad it becomes at times. Yeah, we know how bad it becomes. We know the drunken driving cases.
I'm a little surprised, Shweta, that it has come from someone like, you know, Manohar Khattar, who is himself a very traditionalist, comes from his, you know, certain background. He's,
But we don't know if he's a teetotaler, do we?
We don't know. He is a teetotaler.
Okay.
He gives
Gulam would know more. But
he
I don't.
gives
I'm
you
not
desi
too.
ghee on Diwali.
I'm not sure about his deputy CM.
Okay. Okay.
So it's basically Dushyant Chautala's brainchild because it's his department.
And also for BJP, if I may take a long shot at it, Shweta, you know, the middle class youth, educated working executives, there is a view which has sort of been proved in Karnataka that they have moved slightly away, if I can use the first, pivoted away from BJP.
Right.
So, you know, there may be a long shot view that, you know, given the Gurgaon demography, it's essentially very upwardly mobile youngsters, millennials who are want to have a good life, and for that, you know, if a beer is served in office, you know, why not? It'll add to the color.
It adds to the pleasure of what you can get and buy, and in fact be served inside the premises. Rahul, coming to you, I'm not sure if you were consulted before the policy, or you know your organization or similar organizations were consulted before such a policy came into action, if you were know-how of the policy, but you know, understanding from you at this point in time, given all the contours of the policy, as you rightly pointed out, not many organizations are going to be included, limited number of few organizations, but overall, in terms of business, what sort of expansion are you looking at? Will you be allowed to set shop inside the premises? How do you look at this panning out in the near future?
So let me just tell you, yes, we are part of a lot of policy making across the country. You know, one of the reasons I'm the trustee for NRAI is because I believe in the whole advocacy about, you know, social drinking, safe drinking, and, you know, at the end of the day, wherever you're allowed to drink in any state, we are part of that policy making in any case. That's one of the reasons for being part of the association. More importantly, with Haryana, my own state, and I belong to Gurugram, it becomes even a more of a personal project where every time a Gurugram policy has come in for the last 10 to 12 years, I've always been, you know, in the forefront discussing and providing a safer and a better responsible drinking culture for the city. In fact, I moved to Haryana in 1996 when it was a dry state for 2 years. So you can imagine now it's as wet as a watermelon if I have to.
I hope not as red as a
coming to the
watermelon.
point, yes, you know, this particular use, let's say, consumption of liquor in a office existed. It's not that it didn't. There is a license called L12A, which basically is a temporary license. It comes for 5,000 rupees. It's called a function license. Any corporate office, not in IT and SEZ, can actually go and take this license. And a lot of people take it. So they do a function, for example, a Friday evening, or it's a Founders Day or something, and they'll normally go with, you know, light alcohol. They'll never have hard spirits. It'll always be beer. We've always been in forefront of that. So we have a team which does this. We get the license for them. This is a permit. It's a 5,000 rupees a day, and it was happening. And I think with the license for a larger outfit, where they were doing multiple events and had to do on different floors, this absolves that issue. You know, it's like, let's say you have a small office, you want to do a little catering, you'll just go and ask for a pastry shop. But if you're a large corporate, you'll have a very large canteen. So at the same time, if you have a physical infrastructure in place, which is to do with a permanent bar, which is again beer and wine only, which have chillers and everything in place, which means I don't have to run around getting a 5,000 rupees per day function license. I get a 10 lakh rupees license for the whole year, which a big corporate can afford, and I have everything there. And it's not that it's on the tap. It's not that anybody, you don't have lunch in breakfast time, we don't have lunch at dinner time. We have lunch and dinner times. That's what canteens are for. Similarly for this, an HR or the policy ethics committee, or, you know, whoever decides can figure out, okay, I'm going to only do this on a Friday evening between 5 to 7 before you guys go home. Don't drink in the car, just drink with your colleagues. It's a light on alcohol drink, and just, you know, be happy about it, and take a cab or take an Uber or whatever you have to do. At the same time, there might be some startups, obviously not at this 100,000 square foot level, but who might do it every day. They might just make it into a culture where you could do it. In WeWork across the world, not in India, WeWork is, you know, a co-working place across the world. Beer after 5 is there. Any WeWork in the world, you can drink beer after 5. It's a community place, and nothing has gone wrong anywhere in the world. Nobody has come to, you know, fist fights or, you know, burn the place down. WeWork works because of that reason.
Okay.
So it's
Yeah,
not about social
Rahul,
drinking.
we're quite cognizant of your love for Gurugram, and we buy that theory. But tell me, you know, there might be possible criticism that, you know, why only beer? I mean, we've seen people getting high on beer also. It's an alcohol finally. So, I mean, how do you manage that and navigate that charge that possibly, you know, beer lobby has prevailed upon Haryana government and got this through?
No. Yeah, the narrative, it's not from me, it's the worldwide phenomena. To wean people away from hard liquor, you have to promote a socially acceptable drink which is low on alcohol, which is beer and wine. It's a worldwide. Russia, as an example I'll give you, was never a beer drinking place. When they promoted beer and they promoted policies around beer, it's one of the largest places. The vodka sales have gone down in Russia. So it's a worldwide
But in the
phenomenon.
B2B community, you know, I mean, alcohol business would, you know, be little, you know, might cry foul and say it's discriminatory.
I would not say so, because across the world, beer and wine have a special privilege. They have special licenses. Even in Gurugram, I'll give you, if I have a full-blown license, it costs me now, it was for 18, it's 15 lakhs. But if I take only a beer and wine license, it's only for 4 lakhs. It's promoting cafes, smaller places. There are Korean eateries which have come out. They serve a soju. A Japanese eatery in Gurugram serves a sake. Why would he take a full-blown license to serve whiskey? People coming to a Japanese eatery do not want to drink a whiskey. They want to drink a sake. So it's all to promote eateries. It is all about promoting healthy drinking. That's what we are all about. That's the reason I got into the beer cafe business. I didn't do a whiskey cafe. As simple as that.
And if we had a nutritionist on the panel, they'd tell you no drinking is healthy drinking, no alcohol drinking is healthy drinking. But since we don't have one, we're going to end it at that. Thanks very much, Rahul, Gulam, for joining us with your perspective.